And we're off. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Episode 535 of the All Dolphins podcast for Wednesday, August 5th. Wednesday. It's a great start. Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. See? No, I'm not starting over again, so the mistake will have to be in there. What's important, it was day 11 of Miami Dolphins training camp. A little bit of news off the field, full practice recap on a day that was woof for the offense. I mean, woof with a capital W, I think.
Yeah.
And to wrap it all up, I'm joined once again by Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. How are you, Perk?
I'm doing good, man. Excited. Day 11 in the books. I still think that overall training camp is more positive than negative, even with the injuries. But I think that's because the starters have performed pretty well on both sides of the ball. The reserves, not so much.
Not today, though. Today, I mean,
No.
it was.
Well, that defense, those edge rushers are coming now. They're coming. Those dudes are playing well. The reserve edge rushers. Grayson Murphy, Quentin Bell, Mo Camara, Derek McClendon. Those dudes were causing trouble.
Cameron Good. Can we?
Cameron Good. Yeah.
Cameron Good, because
Cameron Good,
he was, guess what? He was good.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Okay. Cameron Good was good. Okay. But sorry, I'm not going to give grace to the offense. It was bad with a capital B. We'll get around to that.
Yeah, because my stock up player was offensive today. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get to that later.
Don't tell me. I'm not telling you right now. I will decide when I tell you. Okay, fine. Be that way. Okay, so let's take care of a little bit of the news first. Jaylen Phillips, as expected, was back at practice on Tuesday, not Wednesday, Tuesday. This after he sustained a contusion after being leg whipped in practice on Saturday, an injury that if you were there and didn't know what was happening at the time was cause for concern because, and this is, we're going to get into it with Jaylen, like it or not, he has a long history of injuries. And this is like one of those where you looked at him getting treatment while he's on the ground and then flexing the knee. You're thinking, oh no, here we go again. This was followed, of course, by his social media post. I just got leg whipped. Y'all need to chill. And then Mike McDaniel telling us the following day, he's going to be out for practice on Sunday. He'll be back. It's not going to be long-term. And it wasn't long-term. Jaylen spoke to the media after practice on Tuesday, indicated that his phone basically blew up after it happened and after the media is reporting. Nobody speculated at the time. We didn't know what the deal was. All we did was describe what happened. And if you didn't know, nobody saw exactly what happened to Jaylen at the time. So we couldn't go, well, yeah, I saw him. He got leg whipped. No, nobody saw that. All we saw is him getting treatment after the fact. And then he basically was asked by our peer, Hal Habib of the Palm Beach Post, you do understand the cause for concern, right? And this is where Jaylen kind of expressed some frustration, a little bit of like, some people are going to start a narrative that I'm injury prone, to which I'm thinking, is that a lie?
Yeah, exactly. And really the problem here is everything happens in real time. So the actual drama with Jaylen laying on his back, getting treatment from the trainer, walking around and walking gingerly on that leg, it probably lasted, I would say, 5 or 6 minutes in real time. And then he was up and he was talking to his teammates, but he never went back in. Correct. And so the drama builds and it continues. And so as we're tweeting, well, now Jaylen is up and he's walking around, but he's not going back in. People are still concerned because he went out with the Achilles 2 years ago, with the knee last year. He had the concussion problems in college, and people are wondering, wow, what's going on here? It's hard to be patient. If you're a friend of Jaylen Phillips, if you are a Dolphins fan, it's hard to be patient. We tweeted stuff as it happened. It wasn't like it was a tweet every 30 seconds. Well, now he's doing this. Now he's doing that. There were tweets. I don't know how many tweets I sent out during that time. Maybe, I would say off the top of my head, maybe 6 or 8. But when he goes in early for practice, it's still cause for concern because he's walking across the field with the trainer, and then they stop, and the trainer puts his hands on Jaylen's left knee, and so you're still thinking, wow. And look, and after we saw Kader Kohou's walk okay when he went in and he's out for the season, there's room for speculation. I understand Jaylen Phillips' frustration, but he's got to understand the public's concern and the media's job in reporting this as it happens. It's just the perfect storm, as they say, right?
Yeah, and I don't think any of us tweeted anything of along the lines of, "Oh my God, this looks bad." All we did was reporting the facts, and including the fact that after he was treated while he was on the ground, when he got up, he looked to the fans and gave him a thumbs up.
Yep.
But he wouldn't be the first player. He may not be the first player, I don't believe, to give a thumbs up, and maybe the situation would be bad regardless.
Yeah.
I don't know. And here's the other part. The point that needs to be made, Jaylen, if there's anybody who should not feel overly defensive about being labeled injury prone, it's Jaylen Phillips, because unlike other players on the Dolphins roster, his injury issues, well, certainly now, because I can't speak for what he was in college, but his injuries now certainly are not the result of somebody not taking care of his body, because the guy is put together. And in fact, the argument could be made that maybe he's too put together, he's too muscle bound, and it's stressing the joints and ligaments and all that stuff. But again, it's a fact. He's had a lot of injuries. If you want to call that injury prone or very unlucky, that doesn't change the fact that it's true. It's not a narrative. It's true.
Yeah. And the other part or parts of the story with Jaylen are he's essential personnel for that defense and that pass rush, and final year of his contract, right? 5th-year option. So there's layers to this. There's layers to the concern. And so I know that Jaylen understands that because he's a wise guy. But again, I understand his frustration, but that's kind of where we're at on, August. What day did that happen? August 2nd, 2025 or whatever. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, next topic. Darren Waller, still not practicing on PUP. Our good friend Josh Moser from WSVN put out a clip on social media of his appearance on Sunday night, which I did not catch live, where he asked him about his status. And I don't know if you saw it, but Drew basically said he's going to be ready for the start of regular season.
Yeah.
And then he repeated it, and look at the clip, and maybe it's me who's a bad, nasty conspiracy theorist, but my Lord, does that sound unconvincing? Like there's more to it that he doesn't want to say, and it's like it just felt weird. I'm going to leave it at that. And it's like, again, how long does it take to get into football shape? I mean, my Lord, I don't know. Am I crazy here?
No, you're not crazy. And listen, after the OBJ incident or short appearance, but I shouldn't call it an incident, short stay, Dolphins fans and Dolphins media and Dolphins coaches are right to be on alert here, to be a little wary, to be wondering what in the world is going on here, especially, again, the explanation that we got from Mike McDaniel is he's not in football shape. And, well, how do you get in football shape? By playing football. And so why isn't he out there? He looks good physically. We see him out there with no shirt, working on the side, and he's cut, and he looks trim and fit. When we talked to him, he seemed to be in a good place mentally. Frank Smith talked about him Sunday. What day is today? Tuesday? Yesterday he talked about him and got emotional and choked up, but he never gave us any indication that anything was wrong. So it's like, so what's going on here? Like nobody has mentioned, he's got a soft tissue injury or anything like that. So yeah, you're left to wonder what in the world is keeping this guy off the field.
Yeah, because here's the thing is, okay, to me, football shape, you mentioned like by playing football also, because he did a lot of conditioning. He talked about a different kind of conditioning challenge. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
So in terms of aerobically, he's fine. So maybe, okay, he needed to lift weights. Well, he was acquired June 30th or something. So now we're talking over a month.
Yeah.
Does he need a month of weight training to be in quote unquote football shape? I don't know. Again, not sure this passes a smell test for me, but this is where we are. Okay, the other one here, should mention fullback Alec Ingold was not practice on Tuesday. He's in the concussion protocol after what happened at practice on Sunday. I do want to touch very quickly on a couple of former Dolphin quarterbacks who are signing with different teams. Tyler Huntley, who earlier tried out with the Cincinnati Bengals and was beaten out by Desmond Ridder. Signed with the Cleveland Browns, who already have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, except that Dylan Gabriel has a hamstring injury. Ryan Pickett has a hamstring injury. Shedeur Sanders has some shoulder soreness, which leaves Joe Flacco as the only one to take reps, which basically means, sorry, Tyler, but basically you're basically occupying space until the other guys are healthy. More than likely he's going to get cut after that. Maybe he shines and they decide to keep him, but then what do they do with the rookies? I don't know. This sounds like a very temporary deal. And the other one, in the comments, I get ready to fire up your comments. Go ahead, folks. 3, 2, 1. Teddy Bridgewater back in the NFL, signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Love that for him. He's a good dude, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face. Until I'm as blue in as a cap. The guy did a very good job for the Dolphins as a backup, other than staying healthy.
Yeah, that Jets game where it was one and done, right? One play, and the guy in the upstairs in the booth says, "I thought I saw him stumble. You're out of here." Yeah, Teddy is a good guy, man. Look, I like that Snoop is getting a chance. He's putting something on film for other teams. Hallandale High finest. It's good to see these guys back in the league, especially when they're local. Both of Teddy from Northwestern and Snoop from Hallandale. So go local guys.
There you go. And my quick facts before we move on, for those who accuse me of being overly infatuated for no reason with Teddy Bridgewater, is number one, he never played even as much as 3 quarters for the Dolphins in any game. His 2 starts were interrupted by an injury, and in 2 of those games, his passing yards projected over a full game would have been over 300. So please spare me that he sucked the offense, cratered without him. I mean, with him in the lineup, spare me that. That's complete BS. Okay, anyway, we move on. I can't resist.
No, that's fine. It's your show. You get to say whatever you want, right?
Good point. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And then we'll stop the comments. Bring him. Make him fair. Don't call me a clown or whatever. Maybe I am a clown, but not for that, because there's at least a small degree of validity to what I'm saying. Tyreek Hill, very interesting situation here at practice. So the Tua had not thrown deep basically at all so far in training camp. Well, today they took some shots, immediately right off the bat. They go deep. Tyreek got behind not 1 but 2 defensive backs. It was Kendall Sheffield and Elijah Campbell, I want to say. And 2 were badly underthrew him, where Tyreek had to come back for the ball. Couldn't make the catch because by that point the 2 DBs got in his way. Later on, then there was another play. There's another play shortly after that where Tua had the ball for a very long time. Darren McClendon got close to him, might have been a sack. Certainly Tua couldn't have stayed in the pocket the way he did because he had somebody bearing down on him, but he kept going, eventually completed a long pass to Tyreek. Another play later on in practice. Again, they go deep. Tyreek gets behind Kendall Sheffield by a pretty good margin. That time, Tua overthrows him, and that's the last we saw of Tyreek in practice. After that, he was on the sideline. I didn't notice anything wrong with him physically. It just struck me, I don't know, a little weird maybe. Just maybe.
It might have been that might have been the plan. And the reason I would say that is because we saw that Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb were on, I guess, reduced snaps. That's why we saw them running. What's that?
Pitch count, they call it.
Pitch count, yes, exactly. Load management in the NBA. That's why we saw the edge rushers. It was a closed practice, so fans didn't see this. We saw the edge rushers running sprints, which we've seen Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb do on days where they know that they're going to be on a pitch count. They're going to have load management. And so maybe that was the deal with Tyreek, but I'm with you. It was kind of suspicious. I shouldn't say suspicious. It raises your eyebrows. So maybe Tyreek, maybe that was the plan all along, that Tyreek is only going to run, 15 snaps or whatever. But Tyreek he's so thick, and you never it's usually kind of all or nothing with Tyreek, right? He either gets the veteran rest day or he's in there doing the whole practice. So we're not used to seeing this. There's probably been other days where he's had limited snaps, but nothing comes immediately to mind. So it just kind of makes you raise your eyebrows. But at no time did I see Tyreek favoring a body part or anything along those lines.
Yeah, it was weird because, as you mentioned with the edge rushers, is when they ran those sprints, it was like in the middle of practice while other edge defenders were doing their thing. And then they went back in for some reps.
Yep.
Whereas Tyreek got like seemingly his normal workload before the second long pass or the third long pass, and then that was it. And by the way, Jaylen Waddle worked throughout. So who knows? Very possibly nothing, but worth mentioning because we try to be thorough here because that's what we do. In terms of the attendance, should mention that still no Cam Smith. Jason Marshall Jr. was out for stretching, maybe had done some positional stuff as well, but then went to work on the side. Ashton Davis obviously still not there. Baron Matos obviously still not there. And I think and Dante Trader Jr. also did not work. I know Mike McDaniel had said a couple of weeks ago that he was hoping to get Trader ready for the joint practices. The first one is Friday. It's in 3 days. I don't know how looking a tad iffy on that situation.
Did you mention Andrew Meyer?
Andrew Meyer was not there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Great job, Perk. That's why I have you on.
That's right. And he's a guy who
you can leave now.
Right, exactly. I see you. He's a guy who went off the field early during Sunday's practice. Jalen McKenzie also went off early Sunday, but he was back today.
You are correct, sir. And for those wondering, the orange jersey, as one should have suspected, and again, this is probably exemplifies why it's not necessarily the practice player of the day. Not to say Zach Sieler wasn't good in practice on Tuesday, but this comes, a day after he officially signs his contract extension.
Yeah.
It's symbolic. It was good. Interesting choice of music for Zach, which is totally different than most players on the team. His was either country or heavy metal, classic rock, whatever you want to call it. AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, or country.
It was so Zach Sieler, right? It was either Detroit Rock City or I'm a country guy who loves to fish and hunt. So if a playlist ever really defined a player accurately, it was that one. That was total Zach Sieler. You wouldn't have even had to know who was wearing the orange jersey. If you just heard that music, you would have said that's Zach Sieler.
Yeah. But the first song we heard, I think, was a country song, and it was like, okay. And then you put two and two together. He just signed the contract. It made sense. The AC/DC, I don't think I'd ever heard Zach music before with AC/DC, and I was like, yeah, there you go, Zach.
Yeah, he had some Ozzy Osbourne in there. Yeah, it was. He had some good stuff.
Okay, let's get to the practice. Okay, reveal now. Reveal who's your stock up.
Zach Wilson was my stock up, and here's why. Touchdowns to Ezekama, Eskridge, and I'm forgetting another one. But he was, here was the thing with Zach, that on Sunday, he did not have a good day. And you remember the interception to Jordan Colbert where nobody was around. It looked like a miscommunication.
Yep.
We didn't see any of that today from Zach Wilson, which tells me that he tightened up his game, right? He learned from his mistakes. He was under tremendous pressure today. Those edge rushers were all over him, but he didn't panic. He didn't make any forced bad throw interceptions. And then he threw the touchdown passes. Now, I believe I saw this on Miami Dolphins on SI.com that the defense did get the better of the offense, especially in the red zone drills. Zach didn't have a whole lot of success. Neither did Tua, neither did Quinn Ewers. But I thought Zach had a nice bounce back. He had the best day of all three quarterbacks. And the touchdown passes, I thought Zach showed me a lot from coming off of a bad practice on a day when Tua was off, on a day when Quinn Ewers could have gained some ground. Zach Wilson stepped up and he responded. So, in the face of, Quentin Bell coming at him, Derek McClendon, Mo Camara, Cam Good, he was under a lot of pressure. He did a nice job, so he was my stock up.
Okay. I have no major issue with it other than the fact that for me, and it's kind of the same, for a player of the side that was dominated, to me, like the defense absolutely spanked. I mean,
yep.
The offense at practice day. So for me, it would have to be like a mind-blowing performance by an offensive player to get stock up, or my player of the day, whatever you want to call it. But yes, I completely agree with you that Zach Wilson was the best of the three quarterbacks. To me, I would maybe split it between Derek McClendon,
yes,
who was basically, they were about to charge him rent in the offensive backfield. That's how often he was.
Yep.
Now, there are some other outlets, Omar, who will tell you he had 4 sacks today. Again, it's practice. When they get close to the quarterback, they stop. Sometimes the quarterback can step up in the pocket and the pass rusher can get just a little bit behind them. And then some media members will be like, I'm just kidding. Yeah, actually, I don't think you're as bad this year as you used to be. Perk used to be like so generous with the sacks.
Hey, didn't this team set a franchise record for sacks 2 years ago? Thank you.
It did. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
And where were you in the regular season? You were doing this.
That's right. So, I was saying that the ref should have given them more sacks.
Exactly. So I don't know about 4 sacks, but let's just say he was a massive disruptive factor. And the other one was Storm Duck, who I noticed like 3 different times in coverage on a guy who was the intended receiver, and the guy was basically plastered on him.
Once it was Jaylen Waddle on a Tua pass to the corner of the end zone. A blanket coverage. Tua had to basically, the only place Tua could throw it where it wasn't going to be intercepted was a yard out of bounds. Yeah, like there was nowhere to throw it.
I mean, like the 3 of them, I mean, like incredible coverage. On the other hand, okay, now let's go to the other side.
Yeah,
Kendall Sheffield did not have a good day in coverage, particularly deep. Yeah. And this is where I don't recall the book on him. Maybe he lacks long speed, and that could be an issue, which is why maybe the Dolphins are going to play him soft in coverage if he winds up getting a lot of playing time in the secondary, which wouldn't surprise me. And Tua was off. Tua is normally usually very efficient in practice. He was off target. And I know there's this clip. This is what teams do. There's a clip on the Dolphins' social media account of him throwing a touchdown pass to Nick Westbrook-Akine, who makes like a nice diving catch at the back of the end zone on a play where there's a busted coverage. Right. And Tua's best work on that play was he gave a pump fake outside, and I didn't see out of the corner of my eye. I think one of the 2 DBs who was assigned to that area bid on it, and it allowed Westbrook-Akine to go behind them wide open, and he wound up having to make a sliding catch. Okay, and then there were the long throws. He did have the one very nice long completion to Malik Washington, but he was off target on a couple of throws, which you usually don't see from him. He's usually a lot more precise with his passing than what we saw today.
Kendall Sheffield was my stock down, as you said. He had like in succession, he had like in maybe a 5-snap sequence, he might have had 3 ugly plays there. It was like boom, boom, boom. It was close between him and Larry Borum for stock down today. And let me add this. I was talking about the backup edge rushers. I think I left Grayson Murphy out of there, but he had a good day. He was part of that contingent, putting a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. But Sheffield, these corners, they're still worrisome. Sheffield did have a nice play, I think, on NWI. Did he deflect a pass? He had one nice play on a medium range play, but it wasn't a deep pass. Yes. Yeah, but he did struggle today, and Larry Borum, wow. Him and Ryan Hayes, that backup offensive line needs some work. It needs some work. The joint practices in Chicago are going to be interesting. I guess the joint practice, because Thursday is basically a walkthrough. And here's what I'm going to really be looking at or looking for. I'm not going to Chicago. Is Chicago did beef up that offensive line, right, to protect Caleb. And so we'll see if these backup edge rushers, if they get some snaps and some rotations against some of those top guys, if they go up against them in some one-on-ones, we know that Chop and Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are the top line guys. But I would like to see some of these reserves get some action, some snaps against some of these guys in Chicago, maybe against some of these guys in Detroit, so we can know exactly what we're looking at. But edge rusher has shown to be a team strength at this point. It's not as good as inside linebacker, where you've got some veterans in Willie Gay and KJ Britt behind the starters, Terrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks. But the backup edge rusher thing is interesting.
Yeah, and they're going to have some tough cuts to make, some tough decisions to make over there. We should mention, since he's been brought up practically every single practice, Willie Gay Jr. had a very, very quiet day.
He did.
Today, not very noticeable. So for at least one day, I'm sure some of the media members who shall remain nameless, Omar, Isaiah, will take a break from their crusade to get the guy to have an orange jersey, which he may or may not, because if you notice, they tend to go to returning players on the team pretty much almost exclusively. I don't think there hasn't been one newcomer yet who has gotten the orange jersey. So the other notes I have here, I want to give props to Tariq Black for a very, very nice contested catch in the end zone. It may have been from Wilson, I believe. The flip side to that play was Ethan Bonner, who had very, very good coverage, but was beaten on the play because he didn't make a play on the ball. But the coverage was good. And that's all I have in terms of my notes that I wrote in there right here.
There you go. You know what, Group? I thought we saw probably 3 or 4 coverage sacks today, which we have not seen from the secondary. I want to give them props while I can, because who knows how long that's going to last. And the defense did have a good day overall, but the secondary is a group that I've kind of beaten up. And so I want to give them their flowers while I can. They did have probably 3 or 4 coverage sacks today. So hats off to the secondary. I know I just said Sheffield got my stock down, but they did do some good things today. It's let's not make it sound like it was a train wreck in the secondary. And the defense did dominate today. The secondary was part of that, although the front 7 was the bigger part of that. And Alexander Madison started off pretty good. He ripped off a few runs, but he was quiet in the second half of practice. But the first 2 11-on-11s, definitely the first 11-on-11, he did the typical 8, 10, 12-yard runs, not 30 or 40. And who cares? That's not his game. But first down runs, definitely.
Yeah, no, he continued to look good. So that's going to wrap it up. The Dolphins are back at practice on Wednesday. Quick programming note looking ahead. I will be in Chicago and Detroit, so there will be practice reports from those locales. Tomorrow the Dolphins are back at practice, again, back in front of the public, the fans, unlike today, which was closed. And then the Dolphins, after practice in the afternoon, I'm going to guess, are flying to Chicago for their one practice by themselves, or practice walkthrough, whatever you want to call it, on Thursday afternoon before the joint practice. So he is Chris Perkins. Check out his fine work at sunsentinel.com. Check out my fine work and that of my staff at MiamiDolphinsOnSide.com as well. And we'll be back here tomorrow. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching.